So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this beautiful Friday as we move into yellow for some counties, green for others. I have a bright yellow shirt on to indicate that we at the Chamber are in the yellow phase. Next week I will be wearing plaid as we're in the I'm not really sure what's going on phase, and eventually move to a green phase. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Special thanks to Jason Holland, who's one of our board members at the Chamber, a good friend of mine, and a good friend of the Chamber, for being willing to give us a little glimpse into the future of travel. So with that, it's a perfect segue to kick it off. So Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you and we'll go through this. Again, if anyone does have any questions as we're going through, please feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom. We'll try and feed those questions to Jason. He may answer them live as we're going, or may wait till later on in the presentation, covering it in a later segment. So, Jason, it's all yours, buddy.
All right. Hey, everyone. If you don't know me, I am the owner and travel butler at Travel Simplicity. I've been in the industry for 11, going on 12 years now. And as you may or may not know, there's been this thing called COVID-19 going around, and it's affected the travel world. So a lot of my clients, a lot of myself included, are looking forward to traveling again. And there's a lot of questions over what does the future of travel look like? How is it going to be changed? How is it going to be? What's the process going to look like? So I do have. I'm going to share a presentation that I put together for you guys, and I'm going to step through that, please. And as George said, please ask any questions, feedback, comments are appreciated. So I'm going to go in here. Okay. Take me to the future, right? We got some aliens going on. If nothing else, it cracks me up. So, we do have to talk about COVID. I'm going to try to get away from this as quickly as possible, but, it is important to talk about, about the quote unquote bad stuff a little bit. But I want to pull back the curtain also and give some hope for the future. So that's what what I hope that you guys get through this. I want to start by a quote. It's actually by J. Scott Kirby. He's the CEO of United Airlines, and he just sent out a message to 100,000 employees, literally 100,000 United Airlines employees. And in it, he said that we have to continue to plan for the worst, but at the same time, we also have to be prepared for the best. After all, the one thing I'm absolutely confident in is that our customers want to fly again and reconnect with people and places around the world. And part of that preparing for the best means thinking about the short-term adjustments that we have to make to get through the crisis, as well as the long-term changes that will allow us to thrive once again. And I think that that's a good, really what I want to kind of capture in this going forward. So the first thing to talk about is what is happening, what is going to happen with the individual countries. Because if we can't get into a country, and obviously here I'm talking about international travel, if you can't get into a country, it doesn't matter what the airlines are doing or what the hotels are doing or anything else. So what we're finding is that many countries are slowly starting to open up, just like here in the United States. It's not you can imagine every country is independent, every country is unique. So it's not the exact same schedule, it's not the exact same process, but there are some similarities. Many of the countries have already started to open up here in May and June. Many of the local businesses are now starting to function again. Restaurants are being opened, hotels are being opened, guides are slowly being able to function again and work again. But primarily for local populations. I think that we're going to see more incoming travel. Well, incoming travel is starting to open up here even in June, as early as June. There are still some mandatory quarantines in effect in many places, but some of these countries are starting to reduce or get rid of those mandatory quarantines for travelers to that country here in the next couple weeks and months. What we're finding is this. So places are opening up on a very small regional scale, just like what's happening in the United States, what's happening in the individual counties and parts of even Pennsylvania. And as those open up, the circle is expanding. Some countries are actually forming regional alliances. Some of them are calling them travel bubbles or travel corridors. Australia, New Zealand is working on one, hence the big bubble around that I drew. The idea being that for countries that have quote unquote similar epidemiological situations where the COVID infection or number of people who have been affected is similar, there's also tends to be a similar risk in reintroducing the virus into the population. They're becoming more and more lax, and they want to make it easier for people to travel between those places. So that's what we're finding in little pockets. It hasn't been established yet, but that's what they're talking about. That's what they're moving towards. And then once that takes place, then we're going to see people start to come in from outside. So let me talk about this a little bit more. We are the Caribbean. So to give you some real world examples, the only Caribbean destinations right now that have official dates where they plan to open are the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is planning to open June 1st, St. Lucia, June 4th, Aruba, the middle half of June. Some of the other countries that have been, they're really talking about the Seychelles, the Czech Republic, and some of the things that we're seeing implemented or starting to be implemented are standardizations and codes that entire countries are adapting to their hospitality partners. So for instance, Aruba has their Aruba Health and Happiness Code, which they've created. It's a cleaning and hygiene program. It's actually mandatory in this case for all tourism related businesses across the entire country. And they're going to have to go through this certification process. And then they're actually going to be able to have that. I don't know if it's going to be a stamp or a logo or some kind of notification that travelers are going to have access to, where they can see that that particular hotel, business, restaurant experience has passed those stringent controls. As far as entry into the country, they are requiring a certificate of a negative COVID test prior to entry. Some places are testing, almost everywhere is testing for your temperature, making sure it's not above 100.4. Other places this is happening, Italy's borders are reopening for travel on June 3rd, but it's only for European travelers. Again, that idea of this bubble going forward. So opening for European travelers, as it could be as soon as June 15th, that it's open for international travelers, but we're kind of waiting to see on that one. Singapore, another example, they've been opening businesses. They are implementing something called the Safe Entry System. This one is tracking all employees and visitors who enter and exit a particular location, because they want to do that as far as being able to trace and track if and when and how the viruses are spread, to be able to control it as quickly as possible. They're testing some strange things too, from robot dogs to enforce social distancing and all kinds of things. It's not all international either. Right in North Carolina, I just got an email this morning that says that the state is offering safety and sanitation training and certification for restaurants, hotels, and attractions. So similar protocols are taking place across the globe. This one is called Count on Me NC, is what they're terming it. And it's a volunteer basis. So this one isn't mandatory, but again, they're going to have some protocol that you can, that those businesses can participate in, to give confidence to people traveling there, that there's less likelihood of you guys of getting sick. The good news is that we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We are seeing, even with the implementation of these new protocols, while they might be frustrating, while they might be cause some issues, we are seeing that the quarantine and you're not going to have to go fly into Rome as a tourist and sit there in an airport hotel for 14 days before you can go on your travels. I think that international travel, again, this is changing daily, so who knows, this could be wrong tomorrow. But I think that international travel in general is really going to start. There are some examples that I already went through where it's going to be starting earlier than this, but I expect to see it really starting to pick up August, September, October of this year. There are some places I've heard that aren't going to be starting even that early, but I think many places they are. You guys are well aware of the CDC, but this is a good place to check out as far as information. You may not be aware, though, that they do have a map where they base and give their threat assessment for people that are traveling. So use it as a tool. Go in here, feel free to check it out. Other places that could be good tools, the World Health Organization, travel.state.gov. If you're not familiar with it, you can actually sign up for their STEP program. It's called their Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. It's a way to let the local embassies where you're going to be traveling know that you're going to be traveling. And then you can also get safety and health and wellness updates on that location before you travel. This is not actually something new. They've been doing this for years. I don't know when they started, but it's something that might be more important now. And then there are third-party companies. This company, International SOS, they're focused on providing security and medical help all around the world. They have a map as well. You can go to their website. You can go to restrictions, under COVID and then under restrictions, and it actually will go over the individual countries and their individual limitations or process that you have to go through to get into that country, if you even can at this point in time. And they do have a helpful FAQ section as well. So assuming that we can get into the countries, and like I said, it is starting to open up even now, well, the next thing is, well, what about flights? Flights are changing a lot. In fact, I think that might be one of the areas most affected. Some of them are still operating, but in a much decreased capacity. So they're cutting back on the number of flights that they're operating and the number of airports that they operate. We may see some of those come back, but I already know that not all of the routes are going to come back. Many airlines have laid off workers, but they're trying to preserve as many of them as they can in most cases. We're going to see that they're starting to limit access to the terminal. You may not be able to even go in the terminal unless you're a ticketed passenger. So that's one thing that they're working on. The TSA has also been working on deploying a new credential authentication technology. They're calling it CAT scanner. In order to use travelers' IDs to pull up your flight information instead of having a traditional boarding pass. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. Again, there's going to be a lot of there's going to be medical checks in addition to the other security protocol and security measures that you're already used to. That's going to look differently, but there will be screening involved with that. They've talked about, obviously there's a lot more cleaning that's happening. They've started to implement, some places they've been testing and using cleaning robots that use ultraviolet rays like they do in hospitals, some hospitals, to clean and disinfect the floors. Some of them have been using electrostatic cleaning and fogging procedures. They're basically working around the clock, and they're sanitizing everything from cockpits and cabins like tray tables, armrests, buttons, vents, handles, everything. And then many of them are using specifically CDC approved disinfectant. So not just the generic off the shelf stuff that you may have heard about. The air filtration systems you're going to hear more and more about as well. Many of them have either already implemented HEPA filters to help get out the particulates in the air. If they haven't already, you're likely to see that more and more frequently. I've seen some, the policies are changing more. Some of the airlines are doing like front to back boarding. So again, reducing the overlap of coming into contact with more people than you need to. Many of the food and beverage services have either been reduced or taken out completely. We're seeing automated touchless systems, kiosks. In most cases, you are going to have to wear a mask on board. The staff are largely wearing masks and gloves. You're going to see the use of plexiglass and partitions a lot of places. And, you know, to the more of the extreme, this is actually Qatar Airways, and their staff right now at least is wearing full protective garb. It's not mandatory for those people that are flying, but it is for the staff. Hong Kong has even been testing a full body disinfection system. Amenities are starting to be changed where you might actually get a mask and gloves and hand sanitizer instead of the little pack of pretzels when you board. A little bit, so it's a little weird, but it's, ultimately it's there to help you out. And there's many other things, quite frankly. I could keep talking about this forever, but I'm just gonna go on. If you are traveling, some of the things that you can do, again, wash your hands often, stop touching your face. Emory University actually says that having a window seat is generally safer than having an aisle seat because there's less chance of having contact with potentially sick people. You can bring your own disinfectant if you want, and then you can disinfect any of the hard surfaces. They do say that if your seat is non-porous, or I'm sorry, if it is porous and like upholstered, they say don't use a wipe on them because you'll just make the seat wet and it could lead to spreading germs instead of actually preventing it. But there is some hope. So for right now, just to give you an example, Southwest is planning to resume service to Havana, Cuba, Montego Bay, Jamaica, and the Bahamas beginning July 1st. And Mexico, they're looking to resume service in Cancun along with flights to Los Cabos. So again, you're going to see a couple small select destinations that are going to be handpicked, and we're looking at the beginning of July into August, like I said. Now, right now, those destinations haven't said that they're definitely going to be open, but it gives us an idea. Cruise lines are still waiting for the end of the CDC's no sail order, which is currently set for mid-July. So we don't have a whole lot of updates on this other than the actual onboard experience is going to be different. Again, disinfectant cleaning procedures all across the board. Many of the typical buffets that have been on cruise ships are probably going to be disappearing, at least in the near term. I don't know if they're going to come back or not, but you'll get more service, more plated dinners, things like that, which honestly, for me, I think that that's a step up. I think that that's actually a good thing. But if you do love the all-you-can-eat buffets, then you might be a little bit disappointed in that. They're also really offering very flexible cancellation policies and change policies. To give you an example, Regent, which is a really wonderful luxury cruise line, they are actually offering for people who have reservations that are paid in full, they're offering a reassurance policy where you can actually cancel your trip up to 48 hours before you travel. That is unheard of. It's very, very flexible. Quite frankly, I'm really surprised by that, but it's really great. And it's not like travel insurance where it's like a covered reason. It's not like you have 8 reasons, and if you get sick, you can cancel. You can just not go if you don't feel comfortable. If you do cancel, then you would get all your money back, or most of your money back, as a future cruise credit, which you could use towards another cruise the following year. Some of it might be refunded to you. If the cruise line actually cancels the cruise on you because of something like this, then they're right now what they're offering is that they actually will either give you 125% back of what you paid in a future cruise credit, or they will refund your money entirely. So they're being very, very, very flexible in this. They are trying to help out as much as possible. And we're finding similar things with, while I do very little, if anything, with big group tours, similar situation there, a very, very flexible change in cancellation policies. With hotels, they're starting to open up again. Some of them are open this month. Some of them actually haven't ever closed, depending on where it is and what it is and the state it's in. But they are increasing their cleaning and their protocols around cleaning. You're going to see more plexiglass barriers again at desks. They're going to use more digital keys or contactless check-in. Some of them are implementing thermal temperature checks at the hotels. Now they're trying to keep it as non-invasive as possible, but that's probably something, at least in the near term, you're going to just have to be used to. Amenity kits, go up to your room. Yeah, you might still have the tea and the coffee. We'll see. But you're going to have, again, you're going to see cleaning wipes and hand sanitizer and probably masks. Flexible change and cancellation policy. Some hotels that would initially or require a deposit are not requiring them, or requiring a reduced deposit. One of the biggest things to keep in mind is that as hotels open, many of them are not allowed to open at 100% capacity. So even if they are open, they may only be allowed to operate at 25 or 50% occupancy. Well, if you have a 100-room hotel at 50% occupancy, now you only have 50 rooms available. So I wouldn't, in a lot of cases, certainly you need to be, whether you're going to travel, it's something that only you can decide. You need to be comfortable with it. You need to be willing to do it, to know a little bit what's involved. But at the same time, I'd encourage you to still plan ahead. I always recommend planning for people to plan their travels, especially the more elaborate stuff, for sure. 6 months to a year in advance. People are, you're not going to, just to get away for a weekend, you're not going to do that in most cases. But at the same time, you don't want to wait too long, because if they can only offer 25 or 50% of their rooms, those are going to get filled pretty quickly, especially since people have been tired of being stuck inside and they want to get out and they want to explore and they want to do something different. We are going to see more boutique properties, people tending towards the smaller, more intimate places. Most of my clients already do that, but for people that might tend towards the bigger mass market hotels, I think that they're going to maybe look at some of the smaller places, more off the beaten track kind of places. Nature is going to be important. Places where there's less people. Indoor and outdoor pools are starting to open. Casinos are even starting to open. Even the gondola rides at the Venetian in Las Vegas are starting to be open and available. We're just finding capacity restrictions. Now, for events and experiences like this, many of the nightclubs and the day clubs, live performances with spectators, they're still not going to be available for who knows how long, for the foreseeable future. But that being said, Walt Disney World just announced that they are planning to start reopening July 11th. So, George, I know you're going to be thrilled with that. For restaurants, people are creative, and I like this. This is a brand new restaurant in Sweden, and it has a single table with a single chair. I don't know that this is really going to catch on. This is the extreme in social distancing. I'm pretty sure this person's safe. aside from maybe a lightning strike or a meteor coming out of the sky. But the same idea is coming through. This one I think is a really elegant way of doing it. This is actually in Amsterdam, and for social distancing, you can see it's still pretty romantic. You have these little like glass houses, greenhouse almost, that you're sitting in, and you're still able to be out and about. Many of the dining options are initially going to offer outdoor dining as opposed to indoor dining. If it is indoor dining, then there's going to be increased space between the tables. You probably will find that your servers are still wearing the face masks and all that kind of stuff as well. Oh, and some of these are really goofy. I mean, if you search for, I didn't have a picture of it, but if you search for like social distancing restaurants, you will see some ridiculous things. I've seen everything from people going to a bar and like wearing a massive inner tube around their waist to like a hat that has 4 pool noodles taped on the top that's shooting off in all 4 directions to make sure you're not too close. So, you know, it's different. In an article that Forbes magazine put out here just in April, as far as what travel is going to look like, they actually said, well, our small private tours going to become the new travel norm. That makes me happy because, here I am for the last 11 years. This is what I've been doing. So, finally we're trending. It only took a little over a decade. But I think that they're right. I mean, it's going to be more about private experiences, private travel, less mass tourism. If you can afford it, there has been an uptick in people that are buying their own jet, that are buying their own plane, or maybe not buying it, but chartering their own flights. There are a lot of people that aren't doing that are going to still stay closer to home. So they might focus more in the United States as opposed to traveling internationally. We're seeing a lot more interest in road trips. And this is a great option. Get in the car. It's your car. You know how clean it is. Hopefully it's clean, but it's up to you at that point. But get in the car and go somewhere, or take, maybe even consider taking the train or something like that. And there's a lot of amazing places that you can do and you can see and you can experience in our own backyards. So these are just a few of the places that I have connections with and relationships with, but there are many more. But just to show you that it doesn't have to be boring, and travel doesn't necessarily have to be on the other side of the world. You may want to go to the Maldives, and you may want to swim amongst the fish and the dolphins out there. And that's an incredible opportunity. In fact, of all international destinations, aside from having to get there on the plane, that's probably a good one, because you're going to be a couple people on your own private island. But locally, the Mirbeau Inn and Spa is up in Skaneateles, New York. It's the northern part of the Finger Lakes. It's a beautiful place. Canyon Ranch in Lenox is one of the best spas in the country. The White Barn Inn is in Maine. Just a lovely, lovely, lovely little place. You can actually go up here, learn how to cook with truffles with the private chef. You can sit outside by the fire. The lodge at Woodlock is right here in Pennsylvania. It's one of the top destination spas in the country. It happens to be an all-inclusive place, and you have some really amazing opportunities there. Primland has its own observatory down in Southern Virginia. So if you're into stargazing, it's an amazing place to go. And you can see, talk about seclusion, you're out in the middle of nowhere, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And they even have like cabins and some more intimate places to stay. Twin Farms is one of the, probably one of the nicest, most luxurious, all-inclusive properties in the United States. It's in Vermont. We've got the Lodge at Glendorm, which is also in Pennsylvania. This is a place it's Asian inspired. It's almost like a piece of Japan that's on Long Island in New York. And you can even stay in a castle. in Long Island, New York. So yeah, great. Let's go to Germany. Let's go to Ireland. Let's stay in castles. But you can also do it right here for a couple nights. This is a little piece of Provence, France, just plunked down into the wine country in Virginia. Really delightful little bed and breakfast. And then the Inn at Prairie Cabin is a really lovely place to do some sailing or get out on the water. So if you're not interested in traveling that way, or you can't, we are also seeing some virtual experiences come out of this. You've probably heard about, there's numerous musicians and artists sharing their abilities and their songs and doing it through all kinds of mediums. And then you have things like this, where the Culinary Institute's dish program, you can actually learn how to cook professionally with a chef, but do it virtually. And you pay for it. It's a program that you would join as a member, but then you have access to their programs and one-on-one sessions with a private chef. They may not be there physically in your home, or you might not be there physically at the Institute, but it's a lovely opportunity. Similarly, the Chef in the Dish, it's not for people that want to be professional cooks or anything, but the Chef in the Dish pairs you up with a professional chef, again, via Skype or via video call, where you're preparing in your kitchen, they're preparing it and showing you all the techniques and things you have to do in their kitchen. And you can have a really lovely evening together with your private chef. So virtual experiences are becoming more and more important. The last thing I would say is, if you haven't gotten this already, work with someone. It does not make much sense to try to do it on your own. If you've had any travels lately that you have had to change, and you've had to stay on the phone just trying to change a flight for 2-3 hours, it just doesn't make sense. So work with someone. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Travel Simplicity. There's lots of really good travel professionals in the area. There's lots of good travel professionals worldwide. They do different things. They specialize in different things. Some of them you might love, some of them you might not get along with, but find someone that is well connected, someone that knows what they're doing, and let them help you. It's really well worth your time. So if you guys have any questions, we can look at those now. George, you can also reach out to me. The email is info@travelsimplicity.net, or you can reach me directly at jason@travelsimplicity.net. You're welcome to call 717-506-0402. Whatever it is, whether it's advice, insight, questions, or you really want us to help, make your moments matter, I'm here to help.
Very good, Jason. Thank you so much again for your time and your insight today. So I think this would be a good opportunity. If someone has a specific question, please feel free to use the chat feature at the bottom. I know, Jason, one thing that you and I had talked about was domestic travel, right? And people feeling comfortable. I was on a call this morning with the head of SEPTA in Philadelphia, and they said their biggest issue is consumer confidence. People having the confidence to get on public transportation, right? Do you think that's going to be a similar type situation as airline restrictions are starting to ease and as flights start opening up again?
I do. I mean, you have the truth of it. Is it actually safe? Which obviously you can never, even before all this happened, you can never guarantee someone's safety out their front door or even in their own house.
Right.
But reasonably, do we have a degree of safety that would allow me to feel comfortable traveling? There is that, and then there's a perception of that, perception of am I safe? It's interesting because even preparing my thoughts, I was seeing that these places that are talking about the disinfection protocols and the higher degree of cleanliness at airports, they are intentionally not hiding it when they're cleaning so that people realize that it is being done and so that they have a higher degree of confidence as well. So yeah, it is. Perception is really important. You had mentioned SEPTA really hasn't reduced well, they've reduced the services that they provide, but they never stopped.
Correct.
And that's the same thing with Amtrak too. Amtrak has been servicing, train stations up and down and all across the United States. They've cut back on the frequency of some of those trains and things like that, but they haven't stopped it altogether. And that, I think, is going to be, you have more control, you have more ability to sit where you want, get up and move. It's a nice way of traveling anyway, and I think that people are going to be more apt to do that. In fact, I learned not that long ago that Amtrak actually has an auto train. So for people that wanted to go to Florida, for instance, and take a longer period of time, they want their own car, they don't want to get a rental car, or don't want to take the get in a plane, you can actually put your car on the auto train, take it the whole way down to Florida. You get off, your car is right there, and you're all set.
Yeah. Yeah. My neighbor lived here in Carlisle, worked in DC, and then had a home in Florida. And so that's what he would do. He would leave from DC with his car, take the auto train down, hang out in Florida, come back. And he said it was great for long weekends because it was just as economical to do that as it was, and from a time frame for him, to be able to get on a plane, pay for that, go to wherever, rent a car. He said it was just from an ease factor, it was just so much easier.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if you've recently gone through airport security, I mean, again, I'm a fan of of traveling internationally and getting on a plane, but in the meantime, just getting through security at a train station versus the airport are two very different things. Now, I do think that with all this being said, trains are going to have to start implementing something a little bit more than what they currently do have.
Yeah.
I think if nothing else, they may have to implement like temperature checks or things like that. But still, it's been, historically, it's a lot easier to do that.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is you talk about the cleanliness and the cleaning and the sanitization. I think that's something that people are going to become, I think, more accustomed to as we get further along in this situation. I think everybody has been stuck, unfortunately, or has personally limited their travel. And so I think as you said, consumer confidence will make a difference. The lady from SEPTA this morning said that their cleaning procedures they're using, their floors, again, not everywhere, but where they're trying this, their floors are actually the same cleanliness as what restaurants would be. And so if you feel comfortable going into a restaurant and eating, then you would be comfortable going through SEPTA because they're using the same cleaning procedures and getting to the same cleanliness level as what a restaurant would be.
Well, and I mentioned earlier that a lot of these places are starting to implement protocols that hospitals use to clean.
Sure.
So if you're not feeling comfortable in some cases because of that, then you can't, you're either comfortable everywhere or you're comfortable nowhere. Because if the hospitals aren't cleaning well enough, then we're all in trouble. So they're taking the same protocols and applying it there. Yes. I think one of the positive outcomes of this is that the standards, while there may not be one consistent standard for everywhere,
right?
Most, if not all, the standards are going to be pushed up. Yes. So they're going to have to, or people aren't going to travel there.
Sure.
And that's a good thing.
Yes. It's funny, you were talking about international travel. My children had the opportunity to go to Costa Rica last summer, and earlier this week they had a Zoom call with their 2 travel guides from Costa Rica from their trip. And it was very interesting. They spent almost an hour on the phone or on the computer with them, just talking about how are things going, what does it look like, whatever. And they said that it's going to be a while until large group travel like that comes back to Costa Rica. but people are starting to venture out and move about the country. And so I thought that was very interesting, and again, very appropriate timing wise with our conversations. Eventually we're going to get there, right? It's going to take time, but eventually we're going to get there. And I think it's going to depend on the country, the people, the government, obviously, and then it ultimately comes down to you as the traveler. What do you feel comfortable doing, right?
Yeah, and there's within the travel industry, this is another topic in and of itself, but ecotourism has been getting a lot of attention in the last number of years because it needs to. There are some places, but again, before all this happened, there are some places that have limited the number of travelers to that destination. So Machu Picchu down in Peru, you have a timed entry. You can go into Machu Picchu at certain times of the day. Beyond that, you can't. It's an effort so that there aren't a million people, obviously it's hyperbole, but there aren't a million people at one time in Machu Picchu. And at the time, it had nothing to do with virus transmission, but just preserving Machu Picchu so that other people can come and enjoy it. And that's the other thing, is that this is forcing people to look at is, okay, how should we limit positively, put limits and boundaries on the travel that is available so that it allows it to be enjoyable for the future.
Yeah, I think it's something that, again, as we talk about how do we take care of our natural resources and everything else, I think that tends to be a discussion, again, a whole nother topic, but I think it's very interesting that that has already been occurring prior to this. And I think it will be, again, as you start moving forward, as groups are limited, you're not going to be able to have as many people skirting around certain things, even domestically, go see the Liberty Bell or go see Washington monuments, that kind of stuff. I think you're going to see that as well, again, change as we move forward. Not necessarily a bad thing, but just something that's going to be different. So, Jason, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insights. We certainly appreciate your willingness to come on and do this today. Again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to Jason directly. If you want someone else to see this that wasn't able to be here today, we are recording this, so we'll be putting it on the Chamber website for other people to be able to go back and view and take a look at. And so with that, Jason, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Certainly appreciate it. Everyone, thank you for being a part of this today. Hopefully you can enjoy your weekend. And again, our comment that we use so often, stay positive, test negative. We like to see. So hopefully everyone can do that. So again, thank you everyone for your time. We certainly appreciate it. And we'll be sure to catch up with everyone soon.